experiences. Our values are inclusion. We engage all people across a broad spectrum. Acceptance. We cultivate safety and security for people to feel embraced. Honor. We do what is consciously right. Our code of honor. We stand for and never deride one another. We respect and consider the other's industry, profession, business, enterprise, expertise, network, and contacts. We respect the integrity of the creation of the network. We speak truth. We seek to understand.
Thank you so much, Alejandra, for giving everyone an overview, first of yourself, which is always a pleasure for me to hear, and of South Women. And really what you've just seen feeds directly into today's topic, because to us, values are the foundation of how we operate, and our code of honor really sets the standard for how we want to treat others and how we will treat others and how we expect others to treat us back, and as well as how we treat the earth. So know that whatever you bring to this network will be honored. We call that honoring the source, and that is the foundation of how we choose to create impact and how we choose to do business together across cultures and across continents. So it's a tremendous pleasure to have both Wakanyi Hoffman and Fernando Camacho Nieto as our guest influencers today, bringing to the forefront a conversation that has a lot of people wondering, especially as the world turns to look at Africa as a new point of partnership in the new future that we're creating. And so we thought, let's have a conversation about what is at the core of African wisdom, at the core of African philosophy, and how that philosophy has its place in other ancient wisdom cultures as well, and what it looks like to be putting the value and values of Ubuntu into practice in our lives and in our business relationships. To start us off, I would like to welcome Wakanyi Hoffman, who, if you have been on prior wisdom conversations, is a fascinating storyteller, a woman who has tremendous power with her words. She identifies as a world citizen with strong African roots, and tremendously, together with her husband, is currently raising 4 children of Kenyan and American heritage while living in numerous countries around the world. I think I've lost count of the places that you've been. She's a trained journalist with over 15 years of experience writing for different publications around the world. And she is deeply immersed in researching how cross-cultural identity impacts global citizenship, truly a reflection of the audience that is connecting here today. She is here in her capacity as the founder of the African Folktales Project, which is a rich resource of indigenous wisdom and knowledge that promotes storytelling as a definitive approach to learning and communicating what past civilizations have known well before we set foot on the planet, and especially in relation to one another and in relation to the environment. So, as she is so passionate about lending a voice to indigenous people's knowledge and discovering cultural values, she has transformed all of that information into an exciting new project, which she has recently launched, a children's book called 12 Days of Christmas Safari. So we'll be sharing that resource in our thank you email. And I just cannot wait to hear what all of that is about. What I can't wait for even more is for you to get started on your presentation. So please go ahead, Wakanyi.
Thank you, Susanna, so much. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And hello to my fellow world citizens. Thank you so much for showing up today. This is a perfect sample of global oneness, given the places that we're all zooming in from. And that's what Ubuntu is in essence. It's togetherness. It's you and me as one. It is them and us as one community. It's what makes us a human society, and it's what inspires us to collaborate and to network. And this continued need for human connection is what allows us to exist in this world, both in a natural analog space and in the digital cities, as we've come to know the new spaces where most gatherings are taking place. So Ubuntu is best described as global oneness. It is human nature, and Ubuntu is global citizenship. In Swahili, it's described as umoja, meaning togetherness, which is to say that I am because you are, or they are because we are. Someone else described it as, I can be myself because you are yourself. So our level of Ubuntu determines our individual levels of success and suffering. And when there is mass suffering, it can be traced back to one of us suffering. The COVID-19 pandemic is an obvious example of that mass suffering, which we can trace back easily to the first person that had it. And towards the end of this presentation, I will be sharing a folktale, an African folktale, about what happens when we fail to help each other. But I just want to shift our minds from the philosophy to the real practical nature of what Ubuntu really is. Ubuntu is a form of hospitality towards others. To be hospitable means to be of service to others. So, and this is something that is ingrained in all of us. Having the heart of the hostess with the mostess is the reason why we invite people over for dinner or meet friends for lunch and coffee. It's why we choose the professions that we choose. We're all eager to serve in everything that we do, even if we don't know that that's the driving force behind our personal ambitions. And this is what this Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa said about Ubuntu. Ubuntu speaks to the very essence of being human. When we want to give high praise, when in South Africa, when they want to give high praise to someone, they say, you Ubuntu, he or she has Ubuntu. This means that they are generous, hospitable, friendly, caring, compassionate. They share what they have. And it also means that my humanity is inextricably caught up in yours or in theirs. I want you to visualize the last holiday that you took. Now, you might have been on a beach or a countryside cottage or on safari or fishing or even strolling in a city somewhere. Now, put on that hat of the tourist that you were on holiday, and then focus on the faces of the people that you met in a restaurant or in a hotel that you stayed in, or even your Airbnb host. And then think of what made that vacation pleasant. It was the hospitality of the local people that you encountered. But what if you didn't meet a single local person to invite you into their world? Now, how different would your holiday have been? For me, the absence of human contact means truly the absence of humanity, of love. And I picture that as a barren land where nothing is growing. It's completely dead, that nobody even wants to live there. And it's what a scientist would call a dead planet. And one way to think of Ubuntu is as belonging to communities of shared faith, where we are responsible for each other's existence and survival. It's the core of hospitality, right? We welcome others either because we want to deepen friendships or we want to start businesses that will benefit us all. But beyond the financial gains, when you meet a person, a local person, anywhere in the world, that moment that you share remains etched in your minds forever because something in your subconscious recognizes the joy and the relief of being seen and heard, which basically is the feeling of being loved. And it doesn't make sense why our minds or bodies seek the approval of strangers, but it really is how we're wired. It is in the human makeup to love and to be loved. And I recently discovered a children's book that captures this idea in a very simple way. It's a conversation between a boy and a mole. And here's how it goes. So the boy asks the mole, "What do you think success is?" And the mole answers, "To love." It's powerful, isn't it? What I particularly like about this conversation is that the mole does not lend power to the receiver, but to the giver. So in a subtle way, the mole he's reminding the boy that we are here to serve others through loving them. Because it's only by knowing how to love can you then recognize what it feels like to be loved and to be able to receive that love. You cannot want something that you don't know how to give, right? Just as you can't reap what you don't sow, and you really can't enjoy benefits of an investment that you didn't make. So it all points back to our collectiveness, our Ubuntu, which shows that you can't become connected with others when you don't expand your heart to allow those connections to happen. And this is as much a business concept as it is an education concept. Many businesses fail when they lack opportunities for individual growth and expansion. And this failure to expand and understand each other's knowledges and abilities is behind most of these failed startups. To consider our Ubuntu, whether in business or education institutions, and most of all in our private social lives, means being able to ask yourself whether you are in the right place at the right time with the right people. Ubuntu mirrors who you are in these spaces. And if what reflects back isn't something that you can recognize, then that's a clear sign that you're not occupying the right space in society. It does not mean that the people around you or the places that you're in are not right. It just means that you need to reevaluate what added value you bring into that community. To me, Ubuntu is not a philosophy. And I know that we've said that, we've mentioned that here, and in academia, it is labeled as such. But Ubuntu to me is really a process of becoming more human, becoming more you, of moving towards what my husband calls we, which is me and we together. I am here right now giving this talk because you are all here right now, listening to me giving this talk. And we're all here right now because we're all invested in this conversation. And Zaina recognized the importance of having this conversation and how it may add value to our individual network. And then through this, new relationships will be formed, a new business will be established. Someone might use this Ubuntu concept to solve a problem in their personal or professional life. You know, a school teacher might have better clarity about their role as the facilitator of knowledge. And I just want to add that Ubuntu is not, we can say it's ancient wisdom, but to me, it's not a form of ancient wisdom. I think it's something to look back to as having originated with it's not something to look back to as having originated with our ancestors. It's who we are. It's in our human DNA. Our ancestors might have practiced Ubuntu more boldly because they were fewer than us. But whether we are conscious of it now or not, we all live here on this planet because of our shared sense of oneness. Someone recently said to me, and she might be here today from South Africa, she said to me, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And this got me thinking about what our grandparents might have dreamed about us when they were at war or suffered great hunger or fought for freedom. And when they experienced great successes or made decisions about, say, who to marry, I can guarantee you that they were thinking about their legacy and what kind of world they wanted their grandchildren to inherit. My own grandfather championed girls' education. And if he hadn't defied all kinds of cultural norms and sent my mother and her sisters to school, I likely, and my sister who's here today, we likely wouldn't even be here in this capacity. So I was his wildest dreams. So as we go about creating opportunities for ourselves, think about how those opportunities impact others' abilities to have access to their opportunities. This is what Toni Morrison, a renowned African-American author and scholar, once said to her students in a master's class. When you get these jobs that you're so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free someone else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. Ubuntu is a game changer. Your journey in life becomes less about the destination and more about the process that I was mentioning. Your ability to reach the desired destination will be made possible through others' successful journeys. If you're one step ahead on the mountain, look back and pull someone else who's struggling to take that step up. If you've boosted their morale, then they're likely to boost yours too. And when both of us Well, all of us get to the top together. Imagine how bigger the party will be, how brighter the fireworks will be. Ubuntu is a call to think about why you are where you are because of where others in your life are. It's a call to generate goodwill. It's a call to measure your dependencies on others. And one way of measuring these dependencies is by evaluating how much you rely on the planet. The earth is our one shared resource, and there are so many of us in it. So how do you measure your dependencies on the natural world? Think about the decisions you make on projects that you've started, the companies you've established, the virtual persona that you identify with, and so on. Think about how you decide how to show the world who you are and what shapes this identity. Is it your sales strength, your number of likes, your successes, or is there more? What can we measure? Here's a hint: value. And some call it, in the business world, they call it the natural capital approach. And it's quite simple, really. What you're measuring is the collective knowledge, the expertise, and the energy that went into your successful brand. These are those film credits that you see at the end of a movie or the acknowledgement page in a book. Behind those names are real people's faces who have given all their Ubuntu to your brand or personal life to create the success that you're now experiencing. And you also have contributed your Ubuntu to their growth. So in short, Ubuntu is a reminder that our successes and our failures, whether as individuals or as a collective, are a result of our dependence and impact on the balance of life in the natural world. And we are all citizens of that natural world, of our natural world, alongside all other creatures and plants that make this ecosystem, which now also includes these virtual spaces, these cities, these digital cities that we occupy as digital citizens. But we must be careful not to overcultivate the digital landscape, creating cities that exclude others, which in turn might erode the elements of nature on which our physical existence depends. I'm thinking of the indigenous communities, because this is about them, that they are not yet likely to migrate into this digital landscape soon, and maybe never. They are the keepers of the natural world, and they need more support now, more than ever before, to continue maintaining the lands that sustain us. Instead of looking at them as somewhat uncivilized, lagging behind or something like that, we need to consider them as the actual pillars of our growth if our digital cities are to thrive. If your business or personal brand does not consider its impact on the natural landscape, you're more likely to continue mining what is only available now without considering that those mines have expiry dates. You're also likely to forget what knowledge you need, what indigenous wisdom and knowledge you need that will help maintain that mine or that natural landscape. Quite recently, my son, who just turned 12 last week, said to me, what if someone told you, Mommy, that the inside of a home is the outside, and that when you are outside, you are in fact living inside? What he meant by this is that we belong out in the natural world. That's how we started off. And if we forget that through the great migration towards this virtual digital world, we might not remember what we need to protect or keep in nature. And we may very well continue taking without thinking about where we want to be in 10, 20, 30, or 50 years. Think about that. Where do you see yourself or your business in that faraway future? Then consider the space that you occupy right now in the lives of others, your physical community, and your digital space, your digital city, and think about what value you add to all these spaces. Look around you and see other people's added value and how much you depend on them to contribute their best ideas and ways of being, of surviving in this world. And this should guide the decisions that you make when backing a trend or starting a business or rebranding or when advocating for particular changes in our systems of governance. Because ultimately, we all depend on one another to make the best decisions that will have the most favorable outcome. And we can only do this when we all exercise our highest form of Ubuntu. So now I'll share a short story based on a Swahili proverb, which shows what really happens when we fail to collaborate and look after each other. And it's called the parable of the mousetrap. I'll share my screen so that we can all be reading from the same. Can we all see it?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. So we will start from the beginning. The parable of the mousetrap, and it's based on a Swahili proverb which goes like this: a mousetrap traps those who are inside and those who are outside. So in a farm in Africa, there once lived a very clever rat whose task, that of picking up after others, was not appreciated at all. The rat was considered a thief, and because he took some of the food from the farmer that was kept in the house, it wasn't much that he was taking really. A grain of maize, a couple of beans, a handful of lentils. But as we all know, rats cause us great irritation, and the farmer's wife was no exception. She complained so much that the farmer decided to buy a mousetrap. He believed this would fix the problem once and for all. No more rats, he thought. Later that day, the rat went to the house to get some food. Then he saw the trap at the door. He saw danger, and he decided to go look for help from his friends. He walked to the chicken and said, "My dear friend, I come to you with a very big problem. The farmer has set a trap for me so that I cannot enter his house. But I am hungry and I need a few grains of maize. If you go to the house, you'll be able to cross the trap because you're much bigger than me. Please help me." But the chicken looked at the rat and said, "Look at you. You're such a dirty creature and a thief. I cannot be seen talking to you, much less help you. Go away." The rat walked off feeling very sad. He then approached the goat with the same request, and the goat replied, "You dirty thief. You bring nothing but trouble around here. Go away." It was now getting very dark as the rat approached the cow with the same request, but again he was dismissed. And the cow said to him, "You are a thief and you caused so much trouble to the farmer and his wife. We would all be better off without you." And with these harsh words, the poor rat walked back to the house to contemplate his fate. By now, he was starving. He found a nice little spot under the house where he would spend this fateful night. But in the night, a loud snapping sound was heard. Everybody got up, thinking that it was the rat trap. Rat trapped at last. The farmer's wife stumbled out of bed and felt off the trap with her hand. But then she felt a very sharp pain going across her fingers. It was a snake that had been trapped and it had bitten her hand. She let out the loudest scream and woke the entire village. The village medicine man suggested to give her some chicken soup to remove the snake poison. So the farmer quickly got the chicken and turned it into a soup. But the wife did not get better. And sadly, by morning, she had passed away. And as people began gathering at the farmer's house, he needed to feed them. You know, this is Africa. People come and you give them food. He looked around and decided to make some food for the guests. So he turned the goat into soup. On the day of the funeral, many more people came. The entire village indeed came. And they all came to console the farmer. So the farmer had to prepare a bigger feast. He turned the cow into a bigger soup. As you can guess, it was only the rat that remained, and he walked majestically into the hut, got himself a few grains of maize, beans, and lentils, and continued living his life. So, what can we learn from this story? What this story tells us is that when we fail to lift each other up, we also fail to lift ourselves up. When one of us fails, we all fail. But when we collaborate in a trustworthy and sincere way, and when we share and honor our deepest fears and boldest visions, we become successful. So what happens to the rat, you might ask? Because of the oral nature of folk storytelling, this is an open-ended conclusion, and it is up to you, to your interpretation. But I'll tell you what my conclusion is. I picture the rat as being one of us, any one of us here today, You did your best to collaborate with others, but they had a fixed mindset about what their roles are. The cow was fixated on being the grazer, the goat was fixated on its role as second to the cow, and the chicken or the rooster had one role. He was the time teller, he was the alarm clock, and that was that. Nobody wanted to expand and think differently, but the rat was resourceful, futuristic, and he was a disruptor. He disrupted the social norms, constantly shifting mindsets and finding new ideas about how to survive and live together. The rat is an entrepreneur in all of us. I picture him or her migrating into a digital city, building new relationships with others, and learning new ways of improving his or her quality of life in a world that now includes this virtual space that we are all migrating towards. And this migration to digital cities is perhaps the greatest humanitarian crisis of our time, which nobody is really talking about. We all need to channel all our Ubuntu, all our energy into making this space livable for everyone and everything. We will have to decide who lives, who dies, which ideas are picked, and which ones are torched, which languages will survive, and which ones will fade away, which cultural norms we will follow, and which ones we won't. And so our key to survival lies in our shared Ubuntu. That was our ancestors' wildest dreams. And today we are those future ancestors. And long after we exit from this world, the generations that will come after us will be fulfilling our wildest dreams. So, in conclusion, what I want to leave you with is this message. Let's collaborate. Let's create the best analog and digital world that we can together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wakanyi, and I'll ask everyone to unmute to express their acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.
Asante sana.
And we have people here from different places around the world who have grown up in different cultures. And I know that from what you have shared, each one of us is thinking about the application based on who we are and where we're from and the process of who we are becoming. So thank you for framing Ubuntu at its depth and bringing to the surface how much of a daily ritual and lifestyle it is for us. And I know that, and thank you for all the time and dedication that you put into preparing your presentation and the fabulous story you told, giving us a whole new perception on rats. And I'd like to introduce now another formidable inspiration who I have had the good fortune of knowing for several years now. Fernando Camacho Nieto is an entrepreneur, a communication and leadership expert from Mexico, with 26 years of experience in consulting for brand strategies and the development potential and performance of people. He lives for people. He lives for people to express their highest potential at any given moment. And he has been able to generate this kind of impact with brands such as Levi's, Visa, Ericsson, UNICEF, and Oracle. South Women and his organization Crear Valor, which translates into English as add value or value addition, have collaborated on a series of wisdom conversations, which you may have attended prior to this one on Amplify Your Voice, Rethinking Enterprise, and Indigenous Knowledge. And today, Fernando's focus is taking Ubuntu and sharing with us how he has found it useful in the implementation of his own businesses and relationships in Latin America. So somebody who is not even African, living and expressing what a core value system and value process of Africanism entails. Fernando, thank you so much for being here. It's always our pleasure to have you at the Wisdom Conversations and as an ally of South-South Women. Welcome to the platform.
Gracias, Aina. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hola, Jambo. Hello, good morning. Good morning here in Mexico, and good afternoon and good night to everyone around the world. And I would like to begin telling you that this is about you. So I say this because I want to interrupt how we most of the time see life, like window shopping, like someone else talking, like a conference or a classroom or someone else speaking or talking or acting. And I would love you to appropriate this conversation. And I love Wakanyi. Thank you, Wakanyi, for your presentation. And Wakanyi said something that keeps on my mind. Ubuntu, it is not a concept. Ubuntu is a process of becoming. The process of becoming. And we are going to talk about that, and also the foundation of our indigenous people and our society and our ancestors is critical to build the future, not like to be watching the past. Is a foundation to build our future. And here in Mexico, in my country, we have a lot of pre-Hispanic and a lot of indigenous background. We have the Toltecas, Aztecas, Zapotecas, Mixtecas, and of course, the Mayas, los Mayas. And I would love to share my screen with you. From my point of view, in my culture, with the intention to share it with the world, I would make reference of Ubuntu as we see it in our Mayan culture. And let me share my. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so in my culture, in the Mayan culture, Ubuntu is in Lak'ech. In Lak'ech, in Mayan culture, this concept expresses unity in their daily greeting. In Lak'ech means I am another you, to which the other person answers Alaken, which means you are another me. So I am you and you are me. And this is a unity concept. We are not separate. We have been living in this, and we operate and in businesses, in brands, in companies, in organizations, in countries, in the world. We live in the same globe. And we have to break this paradigm about we are separate. We are a unity. So I am another you, you are another me in Lak'ech. The Mayans thought we all are an integral part of a whole gigantic and unique universe. According to them, the animal and mineral kingdom and all scattered matter in the universe at all levels, from an atom through a whole galaxy, are beings with evolutionary consciousness. When we get and realize this whole gigantic and unique universe, all relations will be based in tolerance and flexibility. Judgment and moral value will end because humans will get related with all others as it. So we have heard about, and we hear about a lot about, we all are equal, we are all the same, we all are humans. But in reality, we most of the time as worldwide society don't operate that way. So this is a great as Wakanyi said, process of becoming. And my intention with this and the intention of Southside Woman with Ubuntu conversations, these wisdom conversations, is to become a more consciousness society and build together and in a collaborative or in collaboration. I don't like too much to say a better world, because this world is amazing, but to be more consciousness and use this amazingness to create new things and new futures and break paradigms. So I realized and I got the power of Ubuntu, and I wrote a book. I have a book that's called La Fuerza de un Segundo, The Power of a Second, because I lived a very determined experience that was part in my life, before and after this. And 3 years ago, I lived a thing that I couldn't explain it with logic and with rational. And logic doesn't explain this, doesn't explain Ubuntu. It's something deeper where I am because we are. And I experienced this when 3 years ago, when I was walking on the street. This is my street, this is near my house. And suddenly, the September 19, 2017, in Mexico City, a huge earthquake. And a lot of buildings start falling down. And this was one of the buildings in the corner of my street, and it fell down, like 10 other buildings around. And I can tell you hours about what happened, but the point is, we realize that if we didn't gather, if we didn't collaborate, if we didn't add one by one to pick up a stone, to save a human, to make a human change, to rebuild our place, to rebuild our city, to save people. It was amazing, because every bottle of water, every hug, every smile, every person, every shoe, everything was part of an everything. And we were others, and others were we. So I got this Ubuntu, and a chapter of my book, it's called Ubuntu, because I honor this African concept, and it's really powerful in our lives, in your life, in our lives, and in our world. So I didn't want this to be like a concept or a dramatic story about the earthquake, or just a great chatting. I have been like looking how we can get this practical, how we can get this to reality, to real world. And I find these 3 points. We don't have to, but it gives you a lot and give us a lot of power as a society. If we develop these 3 things, first of it is become awareness, become more aware of our world, of our people, of our thoughts. The second one is energy, because we are energy. Everything in the planet is energy. Just look at one tree, just look at the sky, just look at, and we just see a part of it. Our body doesn't have the capacity to see such things that we can see now by machinery that we have created. But everything is energy. We are energy. And the third one is collaboration, is to add, to sum. So awareness is to we need to develop an openly and more open listening. We need to listen openly. We need to observe openly. We need to include. We have been running these conversations about labeling people, about separating, and that's anti-natural, because that's not Ubuntu. That's not this unique gigantic universe. We need to include each and every form of living in the world. And this is a basic one. You know, like sometimes we are looking to discover, like to go to the moon and to discover huge things, but sometimes we forget about breathing. We become more aware if we breathe. How many times are you present to your breath? Like, this is oxygen. We breathe. And energy, the energy we create around us and the energy in which we get related with our reality, with our world, with our loved ones, with our society, is with our thoughts and our conversations. So we need to be aware of what are we thinking, because probably I am judging things, people, situations, cultures, countries, behaviors. We are constantly judging and making a story about things. So if we can become more aware about our thoughts, we can build better conversations. We could see that we don't have to change anything that is wrong in this bad world. We can create another conversation in which this planet is abundant. And we need to include and discover the ways we can do this, and we can do workability, and we can bring workability to our goals, to our planet, to our business goals. And the other thing important, very important in energy, is to be aware of our nutrition, what we eat. This is like kind of obvious, but this is not obvious. This is very important. We need to drink enough water. We drink to eat good food. We need to take care about what we eat and what people eat. Even in our companies, we have to be aware, and leaders have to be aware of the wellness of the mind and the body of their teams and their people, and also the habits and behaviors. We need to create new habits and new behaviors. For example, a free behavior is to smile to others. A free thing is to look at the eyes to other people, to be compassion with other people, to give generosity to. That doesn't cost anything, and that gives a lot of power. A new paradigm of power, a new paradigm of energy. And the other one is collaboration. Collaboration for me is connection. It's this networking. I am here in Mexico speaking with all the world, with Argentina, with Africa, with Ireland, with United Kingdom, Canada, United States. So we are one. We can connect. We can collaborate. And we need to take more conscious actions, not just actions, not reactions, actions. There are a lot of reactivity in the world. We are reacting all the time. And if we breathe, we can stop for a second and act, not react. and we can take actions for others and stop just taking actions for myself, because I am you and you are me, and I can take actions for you, and that will bring you and me a better space, a better relation, a better result. This is a huge opportunity for companies. If everyone in one company would, if everyone inside a company will be interested in taking actions to make others win, he or she will win, because we will live in an environment of winning, or of accomplishment, of well-being. And to close, and for me, maybe this is the most important thing about Ubuntu or in Lakesh, is we have to love ourselves more. And if I love myself, I can love you because you are me. And I will treat you as I would love someone treat me. When these earthquake things happened in Mexico, I was taking care of a family that I didn't knew before. And someone tell me, but do you know them? Are they your family? Are they your friends? No, and they don't have to be something to help them, because we are just humans. And we don't have, but it's powerful to choose to take actions to be at service. And Hoffman, that it's a service guru, service culture guru, said that the fundamental definition of service is taking action to create value for someone else. So how would you like to be treated? Treat others as you would like to be treated. How would you like to see this world? How would you like to be in a wellness, constant developing life and growing and developing life? Give that. And to end my presentation, I want to share something that probably everyone has seen. And I love this. Ubuntu is a process of becoming. So just be, stop doing, just be the change you want to see in the world. If you want a better world, start being a better person. Because if you are a better person, I am a better person. And if I am a better person, you are a better person. And we can build a better world if we start with oneself. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Fernando. And once again, I'll ask everybody to unmute their microphones to acknowledge Fernando in the way that he deserves to be acknowledged for that incredible wisdom that you share, and your form of engaging people in a conversation that is not even in your first language. That is truly powerful. Today, we've really set the stage for an impactful Monday, because we can all take this conversation and go into our day and into our week honoring the indigenous knowledge of Ubuntu and Lakech. And the 21st of December is, you know, the Mayans had a calendar. We all know that the Mayans had a calendar. The 21st of December this year is when they predicted the end of that calendar. So their calendar ends on the 21st of December this year, which coincides with a great solar flash. So I would have loved to have known what they were thinking in terms of process for humankind in their time. But to have seen this far ahead and to have seen where we are now, if it's something that they even imagined or any of our ancestors imagined was possible? And would we be willing to do that due diligence for our future generations? And what would we be willing to cultivate as our personal legacies in that process of Ubuntu and Lak'ech? I am because we are. We have a couple of minutes left in this conversation, and I would love to open the floor now to anybody who has a question or a comment directed towards Wakanyi or to Fernando. And as you're doing that, I would love to acknowledge the presence of Linda and Anne, Patricia and Linda, both from Ireland, Asma, thanks for being here. Chidi, Claudia, thanks for being here. Esther Kimani, Fernanda, you made it. So great to have you here. Fernanda is from Brazil, and I know that there were several people who've been trying to join for the past couple of weeks, and we changed clocks. So for the next clock change, my commitment is that South Women is on top of it. I make that mistake definitely at least once a year. Helen, thank you for being here. Luisa, Mausi, Melitza, I know you've just come in. So great to have you. Jerry, Pablo from Red Surcos in Argentina. Robert, Sandra, thank you, both to you and Omari. Celia and Veronica. So thank you all for being here. Does anybody have any questions or any comments or any feedback on how they will be taking what we have heard today and putting it into their week?
I think Anne Kioya is raising.
Oh, Anne, please.
Yes, Zain. I just want, let me appreciate the speakers. I love Ubuntu, and it's, of course, when you speak it from an African perspective, it's been a great, I would say analogy, but for lack of better word, let me say, I'm a culture person, so it's a way of life, and culture is a way of life. Ubuntu is a way of life. And I just wanted, I know when I was one time researching and writing about corruption in Africa, I analyzed a lot about Ubuntu, quite much about Ubuntu, and wondering why the leaders in African context have shifted from being safeguarded by Ubuntu, because Ubuntu held them accountable and made sure that they served from an altruistic or selfless approach where they would not take things. And I just wanted to make a comment, because I'll be jumping out, as I told you. There's something in culture we call acculturation. Acculturation is where other cultures that are different from a particular way of life infiltrate. And I think that's one danger that is Ubuntu is facing, that there are different other selfish style of living, if I may say, because Ubuntu doesn't allow you to be selfish. It's not individualistic. It is we. It's I am, like we are saying, I am because you are. In other words, I almost live for other people. I don't live for myself. I just wanted to ask the two speakers, what do they think we need to do to protect and nurture Ubuntu amidst a lot of pressure from other selfish cultures? I hope you got my question.
And I just want to acknowledge Anne for your presence here today. Anne was our guest influencer last week in Understanding Culture for Business. You can watch the recording. It was a very, very powerful session that she conducted with Delia Flores from Argentina. And the book she's talking about that she has authored has just recently been launched and is available, which you will also be able to find when you watch the recording, but on Amazon as well, right, Anne? So thank you so much, and thank you for your question. Between Fernando and Wakanyi, I'll leave it to you.
Wakanyi, would you like to say something?
Yes, please. I would. I'll just quickly say something, and then you follow up with that. Thank you, Anne, for that question. It's a really important one, and we know that we're shifting into sort of a more global world citizenship identity. So with that, I think what you're describing, the sort of cultural infiltration of others into Ubuntu or into oneness. It is, I think what we have right now, the best word that I can think of describing that particular challenge is that we are in some type of fermentation process. And when things are fermenting, right, they bubble, they boil. And as they're boiling, it is almost as if you're taking the stuff that's not so great is coming to the top, and you have to take it out. And what remains underneath is a boiled down wisdom, the boiled down knowledge, the boiled down juice, if you want. And so the way that I think about why is Ubuntu as a concept no longer informing our leadership, I think a lot of it has to do with a question of fear. You know, there's a general fear of others and fear of working with each other. And as Fernando was explaining, the real truth to ourselves is to honor yourself as a human being. And if you're able to honor other human beings' way of being, those ideas will come up. All those ideas that we're talking about will bubble up to the top, and we'll be able to really see where the connection lies. And I think it is a bit of that. We're lacking clarity in where cultures meet, where they intersect. And again, you know, a lot of it obviously has to do with education. A lot of it has to do with we've grown as populations. There's so many of us. But there is this genuine desire for people to collaborate and work together that is truly lacking. And underneath all of that is a fear. So we have to address the fear that has brought on this identity crisis that has then allowed people to retreat to selfish ways of being. I wouldn't think that some other culture is inferior or superior. I think that we all think that way of ourselves. Our superiority and our inferiorities are determined by how we think of ourselves. But underneath all of that is a fear, and that fear is what needs to be. We need to investigate what it is that we're fearing, and a lot of it, I think, boils down to resources. It's the resources that we have, and therefore everybody wants to survive. So it's very basic. It's a very basic survival tactic, and yeah, that's how I would simplify it. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that articulation, Wakanyi. Fernando, would you like to add?
Yeah, I just want to add to what Wakanyi is saying about fear. We as human beings, and our brain is designed to survive fear. And we take these three actions. We run, or we fight, we defend ourselves, or we freeze, we get paralyzed.
We retreat. It's called retreating. Yes.
So fear drives us. But if we are more aware about that, we can be in this process of becoming. We can be aware of that, and we can be courageous to be the change we want to see in the world, with not judging those people that are corrupting things or are doing a bad thing. And maybe we can start having conversations from the bottom of our heart. I mean, I'm not gonna judge you. This just doesn't work. So I would love to do this, or I would love to take this action, and I invite you to take this with me, or whatever the conversation. You know, there can be thousands of different conversations.
Thank you so much, Zaina. I have to jump out. I'll be getting into another Zoom. Thank you so much. That's very.
Thanks so much. Thank you for making your presence felt. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who had has said a lot about Ubuntu serving for peace on the continent, said, if you want peace and harmony, talk to your enemy, not your friend. And at the essence of both Fernando and Wakanyi's contribution today, and in honoring indigenous knowledge and indigenous wisdom, it's practice, isn't it? It's a daily commitment to being and becoming Ubuntu. And as we close today, I actually do want to apologize to Melitza and do that publicly, because the mail invitation for this session said 9 a.m. Eastern, but it actually started at 8 a.m. Eastern. So that's something that we'll correct on our side. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. And thank you for being here and catching the last little bit of this. As we close, I want us to perhaps take on the challenge of Ubuntu this week. And when we come back to the next wisdom conversation, or in between the wisdom conversations, share with us what the experience is. What is the experience of embodying Ubuntu in self-love, in relationship with family, which is the core of where Ubuntu began, and then extended into community and our organizations. If there are no further comments or expressions, South Women is a platform for your voice. So if you have anything to share, please do. Otherwise, I will ask you to unmute and to say goodbye in the language of your choice. And on our side, to thank you very, very much for giving of yourself, for giving your Ubuntu to us today in this wisdom conversation, through which we intend to generate impact in actions and results in your lives and in the lives of all the people around us. So thank you so much. And please unmute, please wave as you say goodbye, and know that we have
Gracias.
deeply appreciated your presence here.
Thank you.
Nos vemos después.
Thank you.